Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show that covers all things marketing. The GSMC Marketing News Podcast gives you the latest marketing news, from what major businesses have planned for the coming year to the newest trends in advertising, from podcasts, digital and streaming, to the old standbys of radio, television, and billboards. Whether you're a marketing agent or a business trying to expand your brand, you've come to the right place. The GSMC Marketing News Podcast starts now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie, and on tonight's episode, we are talking about, wait, is that a bird? Is that a plane? No, it's superhero marketing. That is what we're talking about on tonight's episode. I'm really excited. We are talking about Marvel, we are talking about DC, and we are going to pin them against each other to see who has the best marketing strategies. Already I can tell you just the basic fact of Marvel is one of the biggest entertainment companies of the entire world. It's owned by Disney. They've got a lot of things backing them. They've had one of the longest running movie franchises of all time, so it is going to be a little bit hard for Batman, the world's greatest detective, to compete with that, but we are certainly going to give him the benefit of the doubt and compare them anyways. Before we get into all of that, how is everyone doing? Right now is a very tough and a very difficult time for so many people. Maybe you lost your job, maybe your spouse lost their job, or just someone you know is sick, or like any of the horrible things that are going on right now might be affecting you. And I just want you all to know that for as much as I can possibly do, I am here for everyone. I would really love it if everyone could write their company or their small business, whatever it is, in the comments section and let us know if we can help, if we can buy something, if we can spread the word, if you need help with your marketing, whatever it is. Let's start a conversation in the reviews, because maybe I can't help, but maybe someone else in the reviews reading it could. So definitely drop that down there. Okay, so enough with the heavy. Let's forget about the outside world for the next 30 minutes and dive into some marketing news. Our first story is that Disney is becoming the first entertainment company to take massive pay cuts during this coronavirus. To mark the one-year anniversary of the $71.3 billion Disney-Fox merger, Disney will be cutting their SVPs and EVPs and VPs salary. Disney's incoming CEO, Bob Chapek, announced a salary reduction of 30% to EVPs and above, 25% for SVPs, and 20% for VPs. He said that this will continue until we foresee a sustainable recovery in our business. He himself will be taking a 50% pay cut, while the executive chairman, Bob Iger, will forgo 100% of his salary. All reductions are said to appear to base pay. This is upsetting and wonderful and not wonderful and awful. There's so many emotions about this story that I'm sure you're all feeling as well, because obviously these very higher ups taking pay cuts are going to help people down below the chain with their financial situation, hopefully, and it's going to hopefully keep Disney afloat and keep them moving in this time. But it's upsetting to see the world's biggest entertainment conglomerate suffering in the same way small businesses are right now and having to take these pay cuts. So it's upsetting, but they are doing the best they can. This will not last forever, and all we can do right now is do what they're doing and cut corners where we can, make the hard decisions, and push forward, especially when it comes to our marketing. The second news story is that Meghan Markle's Disney debut is already being hated on by the critics. So it is set to be released on Disney Plus on April 3rd. A majority of the film's critics are based in the United Kingdom have said that the elephant film isn't really worth much. And in fact, they rated it 3 out of 5 stars. They call her out, Meghan Markle, specifically saying that her voice is over-dramatized. Variety's critic, Owen Gilbert, called the theme of the elephant rather dry. for a flick intended to shed light on the species' risk of ivory poaching. Glimbert also described Markle's narration as inventing a version of the wholesome but amused Disney narrator's sing-song. Another critic from the Times of London, Ed Punton, said the former Suits star traded pomp and circumstance for schmaltz and cheesiness. Ooh, those are some bad ratings, Meghan Markle. I'm sorry. Of course, we are going to have to wait for the movie to come out before we can rate it ourselves. This is not the entertainment podcast. I'm not trying to pretend it is the entertainment podcast. However, it is very interesting from a marketing standpoint to see this film already being hated on by the critics, especially in London, because we all know Meghan Markle's history with London and just what's been going on, and should all of that really be affecting the marketing of the movie is sort of the question I want to pose to all of you. And so write it in the review down below or reach out through social media. Should Meghan Markle's personal life be affecting the marketing and the potential sales and the potential reviews of the Elephant movie on Disney+? Let me know, and honestly, by the time this podcast comes out, actually probably not, but a few days after the movie will be released, I will watch it and we will talk about it on the next episode, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Our third news story of today is that Taco Bell is giving away free tacos on Tuesday as part of its coronavirus response. The fast food chain is going to be giving away free nacho cheese Dorito Locos tacos on Tuesday in the drive-thrus of participating locations as a part of its coronavirus response. No purchase is necessary, but the offer is only available until they run out. CEO Mark King said in a letter that the giveaway is to show the company's appreciation. He noted that we are all in this together. He said, "It's a small way for us to thank you for the ways you're showing up for your communities and our chance to give you a little TLC during this time." A really great story just to end off our news segment, guys. It brought me a smile to my face. It brought me a little bit of hope in this world, and I really hope that it did the same for you. Even if it was just in a small way of that now you are going to go check to see if your Taco Bell will be giving away a free taco on Tuesday. It's an amazing thing to see a company like this. They can't do much. They're a taco chain, but they're doing what they can. And right now, that is really all we can ask of anyone, is just to do what they can and give what they can. And if you can't give anything, if you can't do anything, then stay at home. And that's really, I think, there's not a marketing scheme behind this. There's not a marketing strategy behind this to get us out of this. It really is just us all together as a community working together. And I read the other day on the internet that right now is a really great time for us to notice which companies are stepping up and which companies care more about profits than they do their employees. And that is something that right now does not matter, but it is going to matter overall when we come out of this, because there are a lot of companies that have not been standing up that I know for sure I will not be going to anymore. So there's a lot going on. I'm not trying to argue that. Obviously, I don't know the story behind every company. I do not work for every company. But when Taco Bell is putting themselves out there in any way they can, it really does show what their company is about and what they're trying to project to the world, which is really what we are always trying to do with marketing. We are always trying to project ourselves and our stories to the world. Okay, everyone, that got a little heavy there, and I do apologize, but we're going to go ahead and take a short break from the podcast, but when we come back, we are going to jump right into it with 8 of Marvel's marketing strategies. So get your pen and paper out, guys, because we're going to be diving into that next on the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and I'll be right back.
Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast covers everything tech. The hottest mobile phones, tablets, games. We review it, rate it, test it. Whether you're Microsoft or Apple, Android or iPhone, we'll give it to you again. Black and white. The Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast.
welcome back to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jakewish, and on today's episode, I am so freaking excited about this. I know I say that every episode, but hey, do you want to know the truth? I'm excited about every episode. Why am I excited about every episode? Because we're doing so many fun, so many interesting, and so many educational things on this podcast. Educational in the way of educating you about marketing. I'm not here to teach you your ABCs. There's other podcasts for that. But we're doing so much over here. We're creating so much content that it excites me and it makes me so thrilled and honored to be hosting it. And if you enjoyed the podcast, if you want to keep hearing more, if you want to stay connected, if you want to join the community, then let me please say subscribe. Follow us on social media. Reach out to me personally if you have a question that you want answered on the podcast, if you want to be interviewed on the podcast, anything like that. Please reach out. If you want to sponsor the podcast, really anything. We want to hear from you guys. We want to hear your feedback. So please reach out through the review, subscribe, or through social media. All right, but this episode in particular I am very excited about because, guys, you might not know this, I'm a huge geek. I don't talk about it on the podcast a lot because it's a marketing podcast, but for the past 10, 12 years, every May, which is also my birthday, a new Marvel film has come out, and I have waited in lines. I have bought merchandise. I have read the comics. I have read the fan fiction for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And let me tell you, as someone who is a fan of the comics and the characters and the movies and all of that geeky stuff outside of it, I am also a huge fan of the marketing strategies that Marvel and, of course, Disney use in their branding and in marketing those movies. So I put together the top 8 of all of them, and I would really love it if we could go through them. We'll talk about how it helped the movie franchise, but we're also going to talk about how it can help your company. So get your pen and paper out because we're diving right in. So just to start off, I have a fun fact for everyone. Marvel Cinematic Universe has nearly $11 billion in worldwide box office sales, making Marvel the most successful cinematic franchise of all time. And guys, we're comparing Marvel to DC here. So again, it's a little hard for DC to compete with that, I'm not going to lie. But let's just forget that fun fact for right now and focus on the marketing strategies. So number 1, they keep their audience excited. Something that someone pointed out to me about the Marvel franchise that I'm not going to lie did make me go, oh, maybe it's not a good movie then, but it's still a great movie to go see, is that the entire movie is at like an 11. There's no slow build up. There's no long pauses. There's no quiet moments. And if there are, they're really short and there's impact behind them. And the reason behind that is that they want to keep you excited and engaged and keep you looking at the screen and not on your phone or distracted by your popcorn. They want to keep you in the moment for as long as possible. They understand that people have a short attention span, so every 5 seconds of a Marvel movie is filled to the brim with excitement, with action, and with adventure. A really actually fun side tip is if you watch a Marvel movie, every 3 seconds the camera changes. The camera angle, the camera frame, and they'll move it something. Every 3 seconds you can time it. I'm sure a lot of you are going to go watch one now and try to count that out, but really every 3 seconds. And the reason they do that is they want to keep the audience excited. They also do this with their marketing. You'll see movie posters and commercials and interviews and live reads and Instagram posts and all the stuff, but none of it is slow, none of it is boring, none of it is ordinary. It is all exciting and over the top and interesting and just engaging in every single way. So how can you do this with your marketing? Maybe you don't sell superheroes saving the world, and that's okay. But if you sell soap and you think soap is boring, find a way to make soap exciting. Find a way to make it engaging. Everything you put out for your soap in the marketing world should be exciting, should be engaging, and should be interesting that anyone who comes across it wants to engage with it. So that's tip number 1, is make all of your marketing assets exciting, even if your product isn't exciting. Number 2, build a relationship. Guys, I already gave you the example of this. Every May for the past 10 years, I have went to see a Marvel movie for my birthday. If you want to do the math on that, that means I started when I was like 13 years old, which means I did it through my 20s, I did it through high school, and I didn't care if people made fun of me. I had a relationship with that cinematic franchise. And yes, that is a weird thing to say out loud, but it's the truth. And I obviously was not the only one in the theater watching those. I would have to wait in lineups. And it's because all of those movies really do connect. And they really do have small things in there that make you feel like you're a part of the world, or that you need to go see the other ones, or you need to interact with the film's content and with their marketing and with their merchandise because you feel connected to it, because they connect to you. And that is something that I feel like a lot of marketers always forget about, is that it's not a one-sided thing. You can crank out social media posts every day of the week. You can update your Twitter posts every hour. You can go on Instagram Live twice a day. But if you're not thinking about the person who is watching your content, who is liking your content, or who is buying from you, you are not building a relationship. You are just pushing out content that no one wants to engage with. So whenever you put out any sort of content, think of it as the person who is going to be interacting with it, not just as the person who is building it. Number 3, leave them wanting more. This one is cliffhanger central. It is something that I would go to bed at night after watching one of these and truly be like, can this year just go by super fast so that I can find out what happens to Steve Rogers? Can it go super fast so I can find out where Carol Danvers really has been for the past couple of years? I need things to get moving here so that I can find out what happens next. And that's because those movies always left me wanting more. They never had a final end to any of them. Even in the last movie, Endgame, there is still more to the story. There is always going to be more to the story because they always want people to want to come back. There are no endings. There are only beginnings in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Actually, there's not even more beginnings. It's just more and more continuations on top of continuations. So that is something that you need to do with your marketing, is always leave people wanting more. If you just started selling this new soap and you know that it is selling like hotcakes, people really, really love it, try taking it off the shelves for a week. Say, hey guys, we're actually putting a pause on the pumpkin spice soaps because fall's over and we're going to start selling the daisy scented soap now. But when fall comes back around, you better start hyping up that product in August. Get people excited because, oh right, they love this and they wanted more then, so they're going to buy more and more now to make up for when it goes away again. So leave them wanting more. If your product is good enough to stand on its own, then you should feel confident enough to take it away from them only to bring it back. Number 4, let your audience do the marketing for you. This is something that I think a lot of people don't notice with the Marvel marketing world, but clearly the marketing people over at Disney and over at Marvel fully understand it, is they don't necessarily have to do a lot of the marketing because they have built a relationship with these people, with these fans, that make them want to come back more. They've done the other steps we've talked about. So they know they don't have to market the movie at all, because their audience is talking about it online. The audience doesn't stop talking about it online, actually. It just goes on. There are Reddit posts. There are Instagram pages. There are fan fiction sites. There are Tumblr pages. There's so much content made about this content that they don't need to market it at all. You can search the Marvel movies, and yeah, Marvel marketing will come up. They're still doing the marketing, don't get me wrong, but you are going to find so much fan-made content for the films. So how can you do this with your company. And honestly, the easiest way to do it is to make a contest, make a giveaway where you get people to use your product on their social media or share your social media to theirs and really get them talking about your content rather than you talking to them about your content. Number 5, know your audience. Knowing your audience is so important, and it's something that the Marvel Universe and so many large companies they have down pat, is they make the movies for the audience. So if you don't know your audience right now, if you don't know who is buying your soap, then send out a Survey Monkey. Send out an Instagram poll so that you can learn how to market to your audience. Number 6, build your brand, even if it takes a while. Did you know that the first Marvel movie was like Iron Man years and years ago, and then it was the Hulk, and then years passed and another Iron Man film, and then years passed and maybe they brought out Captain America. I don't know the exact order in which they came out, but it took them a long time to ramp up to the Avengers film. They didn't just push out Iron Man, push out the Hulk, push out Ant-Man, push out Captain America, and then say, okay, they're a team now. They knew that wouldn't work. They knew that if they wanted to build a relationship, if they wanted to leave people wanting more, if they wanted to make an audience talk, if they wanted to get the audience excited, they were going to have to build that brand and keep that story going for as long as they possibly could. That way people would actually start to care about it. Now, I'm not saying you should take 10 years and slowly just drop one Instagram post every 2 years. That's insane. What I'm saying is it's not going to happen tomorrow. It is not going to happen in a week. It's not going to happen in 30 days. It might take a full year for your brand to be so rock solid that no matter what you send into the world, no matter what is on the shelves, no matter what is in an email, people know your brand and people trust your brand. It is something you know, it is something they know, and it is something that is super recognizable to anyone who has ever interacted with your content. It is going to take time, but please be patient. Number 7, build your universe. So like I just said, they took 10 years to build the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But it wasn't just those films. They had TV shows. They had merchandise. They had merchandise. Disneyland has rides after them. They've done interviews. People are dressing up like them, Halloween costumes. They didn't just do movies. They created an entire universe for the movies to stand on. So I would encourage you to think of ways, start brainstorming. Now is obviously a very hard time for you to expand your universe, but start brainstorming in ways you could expand your universe, in ways you could build that universe for your product to stand on. And maybe right now it's a small universe. Maybe it's just having a really great Instagram and a really great Twitter and a really great product. If that's your universe, that's okay. But build it so that it is strong and that it is sturdy, so that if you want to expand it, you're able to and you're ready to. Number 8, keep things moving. So although they always left us wanting more, they didn't leave us wanting more for too long. A really great example of this is the fact that Infinity War and Endgame came out exactly 1 year apart. And after a month after Infinity War, they were already releasing photos from the set and giving people hints and letting people in on what was happening. You don't want people to forget about you. So leave them wanting more, but keep things moving. Don't get stuck on one thing. Keep it going and make sure that you are always pumping out content that keeps your audience excited, builds that relationship, makes them talk about you, and that you know your audience, who you're talking to. Okay, everyone, pens and papers down. That was a lot of information, I know. But take a break. We're going to go away for a little bit, but when we come back, we are going to be going over 8 points for the DC marketing strategies. So stay tuned for that, because you are listening to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jakewish, and I'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jakewish, and on today's episode, we have been talking about some of the most entertaining heroes that have ever existed. The reason I want to say that is because let's not forget about the real heroes, especially right now. Doctors, nurses, anyone who is working on those front lines, we thank you, and it is an amazing thing, and it must be a hard thing, but it is an incredible thing, and please do not forget that you are the real heroes. If you know someone who is working right now, thank them. Thank them for GSMC, but thank them as well, because times are tough, but they are tougher, and they're protecting us. But let's get back to the podcast. So we are talking about superheroes and superhero marketing. Before the break, we talked about the Marvel Cinematic Universe and how it has made $11 billion worldwide in box office sales, making it the most successful cinematic franchise of all time. Now we are going to be talking about DC, and although we are pinning the two against each other, it is important to remember that this new DC universe that they are starting to create, the DCU, has really only been the past couple of years, whereas Marvel's been working this game for the past couple of decades. So let's be a little gentle when we compare the two. Just to refresh you, we went over for Marvel that you have to, number one, keep your audience excited. Number two, build a relationship with your audience. Number three, leave your audience wanting more. Number four, let your audience do the talking for you. Number five, know your audience. Number six, build your brand, even if it takes a long time. Number seven, build and expand your universe for your product to sit on. And number eight, keep things moving. By talking about the DC marketing strategies that have helped shape the DC cinematic world. Now, it's important to remember that when we get down to number 7 and number 8, these are actually strategies you can take and that maybe the DC marketing should have taken because they're actually mistakes that the movies made that if they had been corrected, the movies may have been a little bit more successful. So number 1, don't get stuck on one idea, concept or campaign. So for you, this means if a campaign doesn't work, if a concept for your new brand isn't working out, you don't have the budget for that new logo, or if your idea to go on a cross-country soap selling tour isn't going to happen, don't get stuck on it. Don't have to sit and wonder, oh, everything's a failure now because I didn't get to do that one idea, that one concept, or that one campaign. The thing that DC does, and the thing that DC does so well, is they constantly change their mind, and they constantly change things, and they keep changing things until they find something that works. A really great example is How many Batmans have there been? There's only really been one Iron Man, but the world's greatest detective has been played by Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Christian Bale, Robert Pattinson now, Ben Affleck. So many Batman. Too many Batman. Batmans. You let me know in the comments down below which is correct. I'll believe whatever you tell me. But the point is that none of those Batmen have been able to hook the audience in the same way that one Iron Man has. So they keep testing, they keep changing. They don't just get stuck, and they don't just sit, and they just don't wait and hope that Ben Affleck is going to be the Batman we've all wanted. Change things up. Don't get stuck on your one idea. Keep yourself moving. Number 2, details matter. This is so interesting when it comes to Batman specifically, because the details of the Batman universe of Gotham, and same with Superman in the, I don't know where Superman lives. If you know where Superman lives, write it in the review down below. I used to know, but it has seemed to slip my mind right now. But all of those little details that go into it, Batman, Clark Kent always changes in a telephone booth, and he's dating a reporter who always has to have brown hair. All of these things add together to make this one big movie. But the details matter, and the details are something we can't neglect. And this is something that is so true when it comes to your marketing. Spelling mistakes, images that don't look right, the wrong logo, your logo being too big or too small. All of those details really matter in the large scale of things, even if they don't seem to matter on a day-to-day basis. So always check your details and make sure you have the little things under control so that they don't become big problems. Number 3, have non-negotiable brand values and morals. The DC universe would be nothing without its brand, and it is a brand that they have refused to change, whereas the Marvel Cinematic Universe constantly has changed and developed their brand because they have been changing and developing their brand to fit the times, to make things more humorous, to make things less humorous, to try out new villains. They're constantly changing. But the DC movie universe knows their brand, they know their brand values, and that is something they refuse to quit. They keep pushing it, and that is something you need to do as well. If you're going to take your time and build your brand in the way that Marvel did, then make sure you keep your brand consistent and you keep it steady and you keep it going. Number 4, there is no Joker, there is no Batman. This is something that is so funny when you think about it. I think a lot of us get hooked on the idea that our enemies are the thing that are going to ruin us, when they can actually be the thing that makes us, in the same way that Batman would have nothing to do all day, would have no way to star in a movie if the Joker wasn't out there causing mischief. Now, you probably don't have a psychotic clown chasing you around a city or robbing banks that you have to go stop. But what is your greatest enemy? And it does not have to be a person. It does not have to be a company. Although if it is, feel free to picture them right now. But maybe it's the fact that you really hate posting photos of yourself on social media, but you don't have access to a model. So you know it's going to have to be you using the soap. You need to take a look at that enemy and see it as a strength. That way you're able to conquer it and you're able to take control of it. Once you can take control of it, you can defeat it. And you'll see that in the same way there is no Batman without the Joker, there is no you without that fear, without that enemy. It is a part of you, and it is something you need to work with if you want to be successful in marketing. Number 5, know your story. The Batman story is always the same, guys. I hate to break it to you. But there are details in the Batman story, and there are ways the relationships have to go between characters to make them fit that always stay the same. And they can change things, like they can make the reason the Joker's wearing the clown makeup different. They can make Batman's parents die in a slightly different way, but they can't really change that because, again, that is part of the story. Batman has to be afraid of bats. Batman's parents have to die. There are all these things that always have to happen in the Batman movies because it's part of their story. So what are things that are part of your story that you know you can't change, you can't bend on, and it is something that makes your brand? Write them down and then make sure every piece of content you put into the world has a little piece of your story with it. Number 6, develop a memorable look. This is true, I would say, mostly for Superman. You see that red S, you know what it means. And it is just this memorable look that was actually created by a Canadian. Pat on the back for myself for being Canadian. But it's a memorable look. It stands out, and it is something that the brand has carried with it for years. And yes, we also all know the Black Bat and the Wonder Woman crown. But that red S is such a memorable look and tone that that's all we need to see, and we instantly think of the DC movie universe. And that is a strategy that can be hard to do because talented artist is needed and all of these things. But I will tell you, if you don't have that, your brand is going to fall by the wayside. You need to be memorable. You need to stay in people's minds. So develop yourself a memorable look and a specific tone to carry yourself through your branding. Now we're going to get into the 2 strategies that, although the DC movie universe did teach me, they taught me by not doing it. So keep that in mind. So one of the problems with the most recent DC movie, I actually don't know if it's the most recent, but the most recent team movie they did, which was the Justice League, bombed. Why did it bomb? Because we had already seen the big 3 on screen together the year before. And when I say the big 3, I mean Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. They are the 3 all-stars of the DC world. And since we had already seen them join forces the year before, seeing them join forces again a year after for a new mission wasn't really exciting because we felt like we had already seen them come together and build the team. So why did we need this whole movie of them building the team with the exterior characters? And it sort of just seemed like a waste of time. So the point is, don't waste your customers' time. If you have a big announcement coming, announce it, and then don't make another big announcement the next day. Focus on your big 3 and make sure that they have all the attention they need to get the profits you want to see out of that promotion. Number 8, they overdo it sometimes. Now, obviously, the Marvel movies are also guilty of this, but the DC universe does have a tad bit of a problem with going overboard with their plot lines, their marketing schemes, and just how much they try to really push their movies to be the best superhero movies. Now, I'm not saying you should hide in a corner. I'm not saying that you should be like, oh, my products aren't that great, don't worry. But always know where your lines are and make sure you don't cross them so that you don't overdo it. Okay, everyone, that has been so much information. I really hope you all enjoyed tonight's episode of the GSMC Marketing Podcast. I certainly enjoyed recording it. If you'd like to leave a comment, I would sure like to read it. So make sure you subscribe to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and I'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the GSMC Marketing News Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to any podcast app, and you'll find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news, you'll find it all on the GSMC Podcast Network. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.